Welcome, everyone. I'm Jan Gibson, Vice President of Programs for Lake Forest Preservation Foundation, and we are delighted that you're here tonight. We have an exciting program for you this evening, and it is Gail Wallace and her restoration works. It's all about the windows of the library. I want to first thank several people, several groups actually. Two of my favorite groups, the Friends of the Library. They were basically, that book sale you go to every year provides most of the money that was spent on the windows. So the window restoration really came from that, yes. And thank you, Friends. They're in the audience tonight. I also, of course, thank the Preservation Foundation for allowing me to do another Windows program. We just had one a couple of years ago. You know, I'm interested in Windows, and but this is a very special one because it's with our special library in town that everyone loves. And I also thank the Lake Forest Library staff, Kay Graby and her incredible group of colleagues, Marcus Levy and others who were allowed us first to use the children's activity room here for this venue, and also for doing all the research and finding the special group that actually did the restoration. And that's a big deal. This isn't done properly throughout the nation, but it was done here, and we want that to be known. I also thank you for being here tonight and learning about this process, and hopefully you'll convey that process to others who are thinking about certain window restorations. You'll hear all about it. I also want to plug just a little bit about the next program. There's a flyer. Bonnie McDonald, our new, relatively new president of Landmarks Illinois, we'll be here in February on Sunday, 2 o'clock at the Gorton Community Center to talk about the state of the state, at least with regard to preservation. And she'll be having a fireside chat. Hopefully the fire will be blazing in that community room and the steward room. And she will be talking about what's occurring in the state and also Lake Forest and Lake Bluff in the area with preservation. So that's another program we have. But right now I'd like to turn this over, and I want to also thank the employees of, well, I have to tell a story. I have to thank the employees of Restoration Works. Some of them came tonight to join in, young architects from U of I. And, but in addition to that, I'm going to tell a little story about what happened. When you have repairs and work and all kinds of things going on in a public building, especially a library where it's quiet and people are researching and reading, you often have complaints, either from the patrons or the staff. And on this one, it was relayed to us that there has not been one complaint at all. In fact, the patrons and the staff were all very interested in getting explanations from these incredible craftsmen who work for Gail Wallace, and that there was not one bit of misunderstanding. Everybody understood what was going on. There were no messes, and believe me, when windows are replaced or to be restored, I'm sure there was a lot of mess occurring. But everybody was very pleased that this was happening. So with that, I'd like to introduce Gail Wallace, who's the president of Restoration Works in Bradley, Illinois, to explain the process and to show us what was done. Gail?
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I'm very pleased to be here this evening. I want to introduce some of our employees that were mentioned. Tyler, Steve, Nicole, and Andrea here. This is the future of restoration. I've been in the business 30 years. And needless to say, I am a preservationist. However, I actually started out doing this kind of work because I probably have more of a green tendency than the preservation tendency. And tonight, I'm not going to talk about why you should save your American heritage. You all know why. You live in this beautiful community with marvelous architecture. I'm going to talk about why you should save windows, even if they were not under a historic designation, or someone said to you, well, you have to restore them, you're in a historic district. What you have in original fabric, whether it's windows, doors, furniture, etc., is the quality. And for windows, we're going to talk about why a restored window is the best thing you can have going. They're energy efficient, they can operate user-friendly, smoothly, everything you desire. The quality that is in them is just more than you can have in really any new window. They're absolutely beautiful because, of course, they have the richness, the detail, all of the things that, you know, make us happy to look at, the good stuff. They have longevity. These windows have been here 100 years. Well, they're going to be here 100 years again if they're restored right. This restorative practices, it could be in this slide, it could have been down a little later, but when you restore something, that is the, you know, from a green categorization, that's the highest thing you can do. It's a restorative process. It's not just that you're like being green or, and there's a lot of greenwash out there, and well, we'll do X, Y, Z, and then we can call ourselves green, and we can be sustainable and so on. But to restore something that is in existence and keep it and not throw it away and start over. This is like the highest green, you know, practice in the way we view it, or I've read this in books on green activities. So I feel very good about this. When I started this business 30 years ago, it was because I understood that, you know, old wood versus new wood, you could go to the next slide, what that meant, what it meant to have, I think we're skipping a slide here, Andrea. Is there one? Yeah, here we are. There is a vast difference between original forest wood and the new wood that is available for purchase today. The old growth wood came from virgin forests. Now, virgin forests were across America when the settlers came. It is gone. It is gone predominantly, you know, here in the Midwest. Out in the West Coast, there is still some decent forest. And I wanted to point out, this is on the information on the internet. It's a list of old growth forests that are left here in America. And in the state of Indiana, I think it's 129 acres that are left of original forest. Illinois has 5,229 acres. Iowa has none. It's all gone. So when we talk about your library and the wood in this building, these windows, anything through about 1940s and even later, these windows, these doors, this furniture, the framing in your house, this wood was original forest wood. And that's something, because, and we'll talk about that next slide, you can't buy it anymore. This is gone. You cannot in America go buy original forest wood. It's gone. It's a rarity. It's like, you know, the Tiffany lamps and the whatevers, these good quality things. There is some reclamation done out of the river bottoms to get some of this original forest wood. But, you know, we're throwing it away on a daily basis. Every time somebody demos an old home, out it goes. It's in the dumpster and it's in our landfill. And it's a tragedy. I could go on and on. Now, there is some, deconstruction movements going and save some of this, but it's such a waste because it's not replaceable. You can't go get more original forest wood. We are getting some from other countries, and their rainforests are being depleted. I mean, wood as a commodity across the world is just less and less and less. When I buy wood to produce some new custom milling that I need to be providing, it comes from foreign countries because the thicker wood that I need to duplicate your thicker material, I can't buy it at the store. It has to come from Africa, whatever, Indonesia. So we'll put that aside. It's a whole big program in itself, wood, and what's happened to it and how scarce it's becoming, the good stuff. Now we'll talk about, so why is it so good? What's so, good about? I have this slabs right here, and after the program, if you want to, the old growth wood took 200, 300, 400, 500 years to grow. These trees are ancient. I brought a tree here that happened to be in the National Geographic, they're fold out. This tree is in the redwood forest, of course. It's like 247 foot tall. This is the little man down here. This tree is 27 foot wide at its base, its circumference. Trees grew tall and big, and consequently, and slowly. So they have very tight growth rings. This density, this heartwood, is what is in your windows, doors, your older material. These tight rings, this dense cellular structure, when you lift the new wood versus the old, you will feel the same size slab. The old growth is about a third heavier. And it's this density that's in it. This is full of natural resins that accumulate as the tree grows. Now, why are windows that are 100 years old still here? It's because they're from old growth wood, full of natural resins. New wood today is fast force-fed growth. A lot of, there's a wonderful, maybe some of you know this gentleman, he's the father of conservation in America, Aldo Leopold. And he wrote this book, Sand County Almanac. This was when he was living in Wisconsin. And there's a chapter in it called The Land Ethic. And he talks about, I'm not going to read the paragraph, but the horror of chopping down all of the good trees without any thought of sustainability or putting anything back. Then, literally there are tree farms, and trees are grown like cabbages, like a commodity. All in a row, get them growing fast, get them chopped down, get them sold. What you have in that scenario is literally pulpwood. There is no time for growth rings to occur. No heartwood is formed. It is what you buy at the lumber store. It is pulpwood. That's, basically the outer part of a tree, the pulp. So these are things, if you really want to study some of it. So this wonderful wood, it's full of natural resins, plenty of heartwood. Of course it's free of knots because the knots are in the pulpwood part where the branches are occurring. It's solid, is my point. Rot resistance, of course it is. It can last that 100 years. Now, of course, it can start rotting eventually, but thicker and longer lumber was available. All old windows are typically thicker. They're 1 3/4, 2 1/4 thick, that's standard. When you buy windows today, they're 1 3/8. They're downsized, everything is less. When we go and do whatever, big commercial buildings, and you see beams that are 14 foot long, that are solid beams, and they're 4-inch thick, and so on, you cannot buy that anymore. It's not available. You laminate boards to get a thicker board, and that's fine. But when we throw those away in our landfill, it's a tragedy, because you can't replace those anymore. And this old wood, because it's dense and thick, it's more energy efficient. The R value is greater. I don't know how much, and it depends on the tree. But I've heard this several times by the historic agencies that it does have a greater R value. We can next. So we have this inherent quality in this original forest wood. Now we're up to the craftsmanship that was involved. We talked about the large, thick lumber that was used to be available, no longer available. The wood was a full-dimension wood. A 2x4 was really a 2x4. Of course, we've downsized all of that these days. The joinery was mortise and tenon joinery. This is what's depicted right here. This joinery is the best joinery available for windows and doors. It locks together. In the very old days, it would have a peg going through at this point. Now, they were square head nails. Then we get up to other kinds of little fasteners. People think they were glued, and they were not. They were not. This is no longer used. Any new window, of course, some people, I understand that one company has come back and is starting to use it again on special order. But you have to go to a custom mill house to get a new milled window with this kind of joint. Now, this joint, yes, it's at the corners, but this mortise and tenon joint is part of this muntin bar. And as the muntin bar enters, this is the stile and the rails at the bottom, they're mortised in. This provides structural strength. New windows don't have this. They don't even have true divided lights anymore, which is the muntin, So you have all kinds of downgrading and downgrading and downgrading over what used to be. And I'm simply saying, when you throw this old stuff away, it's a tragedy, because you're not going to get an like-kind replacement. It'll be sort of like it. So we have the old windows, and it had true divided lights. We mentioned that. The windows were built right into the walls of a building. That's where the weight pockets are. There's a lot of stability. When you replace a window, they don't pull that old frame out. They cap a new window over the old frame, typically, because it's too messy to pull it out. And it downsizes the opening. You don't have as much window daylight as you used to have, because this new window has its own frame, and it's all going to be downsized. So the stability of an old window is, much greater. The rare decorative features, this is showing, some of it. I brought this along. This is a window from Yale University's art gallery. Our company did the art gallery last year. It's a wonderful project, wood and steel. The shapes in this are fantastic. The style, the way they put, this is the sash here, and it fits in and locks in and forms like the double shape. this is the old Craftsmanship that you can get and could get and have many interesting features here in Lake Forest, but this is a very good example. This window, losing it here, is it's a Gothic style, of course. This is from Northwestern University's University Hall. The reason I have this window and this window is because they put louvers in the opening. They're way up high, and I got to keep them. And this is a window, you know, that looked like that. This is actually graffiti from the students from 1893. There's actually carved in there. You have to come see it. But, you know, again, all of this can be restored. This is not to be thrown away. This is precious original forest wood. And very narrow muntin, there, you know, particular features. So all of these things are pretty amazing to our company. What we see, what we run into, the beautiful craftsmanship. So there's bowed windows, round shapes, all the patterns, lugs. I don't think I have an example of a lug, but I do in pictures. It's just a little extension of the sides of the sash, their styles, and the lugs give better stability to the joinery, the mortise and tenon joint. These little, this gentleman here was telling me his father's an architect, and I mean, that was fascinating how the profiles were designed to reflect the light that hit them, and each shape had its purpose to reflect this light. So the thought that went into these things is, you know, it's not mass produced off a machine, everything the same. You know, it's pretty amazing stuff. So I think we'll go on. And okay, so this is just showing, you know, the window restoration has finally, I feel, arrived. Back when I started this business, actually the first project we did was in 1981, was the St. Nicholas Hotel in Springfield. And we did not have epoxy restoration skills under our belt, which is kind of the heart of the whole restoration program. But in 1988, we did the Rookery in downtown Chicago. And this was the first large building that ever had their windows restored. And we were, you know, right there because we had already done maybe 3-4 years worth of, you know, restoration and had a shop and was, you know, set up to do this. I go by this building and these windows just look great to me. And this is how many, 25, 30 years later. In this case, this building had a conversion to insulating glass. And that's, you know, something we do when asked to do it. We do many glass options, but we'll talk about glass a little later on. But my point is, so all of these, through these years, more and more people are realizing we need to restore more and what they have. And we have a portfolio book. I don't know, you know, we've done thousands of window restorations at this point. And the green movement is certainly fueling this whole thing. People are realizing the value and worth of materials and you know, pushing for window restoration. Okay, what does restoration mean? I'll do this quick. We have a very, very strict, authentic approach to window restoration. Some people think if you scrape and paint, you've restored the windows. Well, we do everything we can on a window to maximize the life of the window. We want it around for another 100 years. It's been here that long, it certainly can. In Europe, there are windows that are 400 years old. We can do it in America as well. Every step we do has a reason and it's integrated because each step has to be done right for the next step to be done, you know, with success, as it's pointing out. So we can go to the next one. the process. We'll get into how we actually do this. We always like to disassemble everything down to the bare structure. We like to pull apart the sash, look at the joint, correct it where needed, etc. This disassembly allows us to inspect every part of the wood. We like to strip always to bare wood. It's a little bit of a compromise to just scrape and paint maybe the frames, but do the sash completely, the whole steps. But we work with situations. We're not, we understand people, have budgets and time constraints. But most of our work is totally disassembled and stripped to bare wood. The hardware, the balance system, the glazing can be saved or replaced, and the weather stripping is removed as well. The old weather stripping, we put a new weather stripping system in. So even stripping has to be done correctly. People strip with the wrong chemicals. They, use inappropriate methods. This is not good. You really need to know how to strip sensitively so that wood is not damaged, furred up, or any problems with it. So stripping is the first step. Next. Again, we pull apart the joints. I said joinery is inspected and corrected where needed. This particular slide, in your library here, you had a rotted bottom rail. And this slide is showing when we do have to replace a part, it's an exact duplicate. The profiles, everything about it is, we actually make knives so that it matches. So this is new and this is original. And you can see, all the detail is the same. As I said, the heart of the restoration program is epoxy work. Now I'm going to ask you to give up and pass out those little samples so people can see. We have a couple of samples that show you the stair-step approach. It's original wood. It's been stripped. Epoxy work has started. These patches you see, and there are epoxy patches. This patch typically is white in color because that's, the color of its stuff. We pigment it a lot of times to have it blend in with an eventual stain finish. So this is showing some epoxy. This is what it looks like. This is the resin. This is the fill. This is, some work going on. This had extensive epoxy work here. This actually is a part of what's on our brochure and our business cards. We don't do just windows, but this very decorative piece was the head of some of these, about 38 pillars on the merchandise mart in St. Louis. And we restored those back to what they were. So this epoxy is done very carefully, and we do use the West system. This is more of an industrial type of epoxy. You buy the raw materials and you mix it yourself, so you get the right viscosity to match up to the infirmity in the wood, so that if it needs to be loose, it goes into the wood. If it's got to be sculpted, it's got to be a little thicker stuff. And we have, highly skilled people to do this. They do amazing work. I really am so proud of my company and what what the end product we can achieve. This is done in 3 rounds, the first one being the structural. We do epoxy consolidate all this joinery when we put the sash back together. We want it to be very strong. This was done on all your windows here. All where the muntin bars, enter into the stiles and rails. it's all epoxy consolidated. This is like having a window, it never had so much structural strength. We do this because we do a lot of large commercial windows. And it needs that structural strength. Even though this mortise and tenon joinery is superior, you'll see they'll start to pull apart. You want that really solid joinery. That's what you see here. That's why this looks so good. There are no hairline cracks anywhere. Everything is tight. It's tight for against moisture prevention. It's tight because of air can get in there, and because the paint surfaces need to all be continuous. So we do all of these steps. We fill those holes, gouges, splinters, worn edges, worn profiles. Then we go back, and any fine line that we see, we will fill. And it makes a totally, solid contained wood. You can go ahead. The glass, oh my goodness, we could talk a whole program on that. A lot of new glass has come out on the market to address the energy savings that is required for Energy Star windows, etc. There's blast-resistant requirements on a lot of government buildings. There's hurricane down in the areas along the coast. We can do anything. We can put all these glass types, as long as it's clear for historic standard. We have done work on a government building and did put in the laminated glass and routed out and gave it a better bite. So when people say, oh, well, you can't do that with a window, an old window, oh, yes, you can. We can do bowed, whatever. This is showing insulating unit being glazed in. This looks like new wood. I don't know. We chose a slide that wouldn't be a good example. Sometimes we have to do that. But you'll see, how the space is between. But we put in, we can use the original glass. We can restore that. We take all the old putty residue off. We can put in new restoration glass that has waves in it. We can use laminated glass, which is what we did here for the sound abatement, because it's a library, because you've got the train going by. And I did hear that the noise reduction was tremendous and noticeable by the staff. That was mentioned to me. This glass, these technologies do the job. Laminated glass has a film in between. It curbs UV rays, so if you have a museum, sometimes we use this glass to preserve the interior finishes and furniture. There's lots of options. You're not suffering because you're restoring your glass if you have certain needs that need to be met. So this is listing some out, and we talked about, there are solutions, and you're not lacking anything to have this option done. At the library, I just mentioned that we did use this laminated glass, which is 2 layers sandwiched together with a film in between. It also had a low-E coating. One of the layers, the surfaces had low-E coating to give a better energy savings. So it is single glass because that was what was desired, but the sound abatement, etc., is very nice, very good choice that the clients chose. The coatings. Our coatings, people say, oh, what is that paint? Why are they so nice looking? We use Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, actually whatever the architects are speccing and tell us to use. But we do apply it with spray paint booth equipment, which gives this very nice finish. Sometimes actually, if you want a graining in the paint, we'll go back and do that, like a paintbrush look. But this kind of finish, the dirt does not cling to, and it sheds very nicely. And these are all the good paints, the Duration, Sherwin-Williams, et cetera, and the even mill and it's perfectly prepared substrate, primed, and then finish coated. So the painting we can do, we also do a lot of stain work. I would say it's probably 50-50. We have our own laboratory to custom color, custom the color of the stain to match to whatever the client wants. You had that done here. You had other furnishings in your library that we matched up to. So, you can go to that, take that step. In your case, sometimes the epoxy patch kind of obliterated the nice graining pattern, and we faux finished it in for you. So you have, the full range of our skills that we did apply. Next, please. So we also restore hardware. People talk about the old weight and chain balance system. Oh, it's so horrible. It is wonderful. This is the only balance system that can last 100 years and still be here and still function. Now we upgrade it. We strip it, get all the rust off. We put new chain. We make sure the weights are correct, because a lot of times we find they weren't correct to begin with. So that it's counterbalanced properly, and when that window is raised and lowered, it can be done with ease. We do restore hardware on most of our jobs, sometimes not, sometimes we purchase new. There is, antique hardware, period hardware that can be bought. You can get custom made. You can get old things plated. The options are, again, out there and limitless. So this is just showing, what did we do here, Andrea? Did we? We restored the original. So when you see the hardware, that's the original restored. Okay. We also do steel windows. We've done work on residences here in your area, and one of them was a steel window. I think we did two homes that had extensive, the 50 steel window. And it's amazing. People, again, bash steel. Oh, it's ugly. That's, rust and erosion. When it's done, this window was, anyone would say, oh, give up on it. But when you restore them and bring them back, they're absolutely elegant. And you can improve them from an energy standpoint. So it's the same process, but, a little bit different materials, et cetera. So I wanted to show you our facility. We are actually not a subcontractor so much as that we have a large restoration facility. It actually goes across, this is a loading dock, but we go from this end to that end. And it's all set up for restoration. We take windows from other parts of the country that another contractor who does the field work pulls them. We were talking about that earlier because we just did a project at Yale University. We don't have to do the field work. In other words, I'm saying if you have a contractor and he's doing work on your house or something, you can have him remove your sash and we can pick them up or have them shipped to our facility. We'll do our magic and send them back. This is the way our facility is laid out. It's 30,000 square foot, and it's by department, so we can, move the window through. And we've had people, I don't know, they're probably 15 years now, I think some are 18, that are highly skilled, and they're actually cross-trained. They can do several of these steps, but we are trying, and I'm my goal is to become like the window restoration company that does, a couple thousand windows a year. I said I want to be the Marvin Pella Anderson, but in the window restoration field. So that's what we're, set up to do. And we do windows, you know, we've done 1,000 window jobs, 2 of them, and then some 300, 400, 500 window job. So that kind of facility can handle that. A little bit before and after pictures, just so you can see, this is a window from NIH, that's National Institute of Health in Washington, D.C. We did 250 window job. And this was with the blast resistance that had to have that feature. So this is laminated glass. The glazing channels were routed deeper to have more of a bite, so that as the pressure came through, it have more, you know, strength. This is St. Clements in Chicago. These are beautiful windows, and they actually chose to convert to insulating glass. And I'm showing you it's possible to even have shapes, etc., and we can do this conversion. But and this is again on the same. It's St. Clements, but it's a different part of the building. Bowed windows, before and after. Same windows, you know, people say, oh, it's a new window. And we did put in insulating glass in the bowed window, so that's possible too. Now, I think we may be the only company in the country that could do that, because it's a very high skill thing to get all that correct. This is Couples Mansion in St. Louis, at St. Louis University's campus. And they had, I think, 24 bowed windows, these turrets all over the place. And this is single glass, that's what they chose. But they were going to replace, and we said, but it's a museum, you can't do that. Well, but the windows are so bad. We said, yeah, well, they look bad, but we can do it. We did a sample window, and this is the same window. Now, all of this is interior, you know, deterioration from condensation. They had a horrible condensation problem, which got corrected. All of that's corrected. That's the same window. And it's, you know, again, a beautiful piece. This is some of the steel work I was talking about. This is from Yale University, their art gallery. So this is what this looked like before we started. The same here. This is with some leaded glass. This is some leaded feature here. The before and after. This is, we did do Water Tower in Chicago. We've done quite a few high-profile buildings. And people didn't, there's 125 windows on that thing. You don't see it when you look at it that there would be that many. But there are, you know, some at the top and then throughout, and some in here, and they just added up. So we went up and down the tower to get all that work done. And we did do Orchestra Hall. And I can't remember, it's the Art League that was up on the top floor. Anyway, we had to do some pretty fancy work there as well. This is Schurz High School. This was my first, you know, after the Rookery, 835 windows. We did this in about 1995, and this was a 1,000 window job. Yeah. This is Yale University's art gallery. It's just a wonderful building. It kind of, you know, goes on and has a part in the back, and this is some of their first floor showroom. And they actually, I brought that along, they had a wonderful article in the Trib, I think last week, which is here, talking about the collections at this art gallery, which are amazing. I had no idea what they had there. So you might want to, I said they ought to put an article in the paper about a Midwest company doing the windows in their art gallery. And this, of course, you will recognize, Ragdale. We really enjoyed working on that project. The thing about Ragdale is they wanted storm windows. They wanted their primary window restored, but they were really disappointed in several company storm windows. And we designed a storm window, and I brought a sample of what was used there, but the thing is, there were, I don't know, 42 different sizes and shapes, and the trick is to do this precise measurement and match and have the meeting rails match between the storm and the primary window, and all of that attention was done there as it would be anywhere. But I mean, I can't tell you how many people have called me up and said they are amazing. I've never seen storm windows like that. So storm windows, you know, are available, and we, as a company, we are here to serve the client, not sell a particular anything. We tell people, you could do this, you can do this, you can do this, and you can do this. And, you know, you let us know what's right for you. So, and this, of course, is our library, and it's showing some of the stages. This is, you know, epoxy work being done on the trims, the stops, and so on that hold in the window. And the window in progress. This is in the paint room. It's being glazed. And this is the men working in your space. We just had some shots. We thought, well, we'll throw them in. And so, restored windows, you know, we just tell people, consider the option. They will be energy efficient. You can do, you know, so it's the glass and this wonderful weather strip system we have. The way you caulk it, the way you fit the window in, the way you take care of all the joinery, that all adds up into an incredibly energy efficient window. But put it back. The smooth operability. When you balance that thing correctly, when you have the weather strip in there, it will rise with ease. We did the largest sash we ever did in Milwaukee. These windows were 5 foot wide and I think 7 foot tall for one sash, and it was a conversion from a department store to a senior citizen residence. It's like, how are these people going to raise this horrible window? Well, we had to do some tricks. We did switch out the pulley wheel because there's the new type that have ball bearings, and they are easier. But we balanced that so perfectly that there has not been a complaint about that at all. Quality materials, everything that goes in that window in the restoration process is the best we can get for it. Of course, the material itself has inherent value, the wood and the superior craftsmanship, and then the added modern technologies, that weather stripping, the new kind of caulk, the new kind of paints, etc. So it's all adds up into, really a good quality window. So next, I say when you combine the superior quality of an original window with today's new technology, you're creating a perfect window. It's the best thing you can get. Thank you. How long did I go? Yes?
Is there a foolproof double-glazed sealed unit?
No.
Okay.
And it's a very good question because we're very particular about who we use and how those units are made. And we insist on double seal, number one, and that the manufacturer have, good machinery and so on. We have to have very clean units because they cannot show in the glass area any of the spacer bar or the caulk. So we, do jump through hoops. We talk to the manufacturer, let them know, has to be low profile, has to be this, has to be that, has to be 10-year warranty. Now, in that vein, we did the rookery in 1988, and that was insulating glass, and I have never had a callback that they've had a failure or fog up. It can be done for longevity. I should say we did the McCormick Mansion at Cantini, and their two wings had original 1940s insulating glass, and I think maybe there were about 8 of them that were fogged up, and I couldn't believe it. And out of about probably 150 little insulating glass units. So, you know, quality is everything, and just, it's a really good question, but, you know, it's a drawback. I mean, you someday will have to take that glass out and put new one in, and maybe 20 years, 30 years, 40. If you had single glass, it could be there for 100 years. Yes?
What kind of R value do you get with the glass that you used here in the library building? You used a single pane glass
Yes.
as a laminate, but do you have any idea?
Incrementally, it's a little better than single glass is about this is U value. It's different from R value entirely. The lower you go, the better off you are, as opposed to R value, the higher you go. So a single glass is about 1.03 or something like that. Double glazing is about 0.49. The in between with this glass, it's about 0.64. It's like between single and double glazing. Now, we can put in insulating glass, and it's available now in new windows and to us, that has 2 coats of low E on one surface and another, and the double glaze becomes triple glaze value. So I can take and put in this window an IG unit with a triple glaze U value now. I don't have to have 3 pieces of glass, just the 2, and as long as it's got the double coating. Yes?
So when you glaze the window back in this restored sash, do you still use traditional oil putty?
No, no. It's a very good question. That's why I brought this along, and I mean, I don't know that you would have time to come and look closely. In order to do a conversion from single to double glazing, you have a whole bunch of, you know, rules to have on a historic window. The shadow lines have to remain the same. The putty lines have to remain the same. So in this case, this outboard light of the insulating glass unit is on the same plane as where the old original glass was. We have to route out the glazing channel, and that's why I brought that model along. You can see the routed circumstance. It's inward and downward, and it's very sensitive, and we do it very carefully. The glass unit is glazed in with glazing putty. We cannot use standard putty anymore. It's not compatible with the sealants in the insulating glass unit. So we use a custom milled wood glazing bead that mocks the putty line, but is appropriate for that type of glass. And then after, and that's shown on here, what it looks like as it's glazed. It's all set in glazing sealant. The bead is applied, and there'll be sealant squished out that gets cleaned off. And this brads are applied to mechanically fasten this bead. And then we go over the nail heads and the mitered corners with epoxy. That's our fine line, so that it's a perfect watershed. This is a high performance glazing system. Now that was done here as well because you cannot use putty when you use laminated glass. It's not compatible. The laminated glass process will be harmed if you went back to putty. So you have this wood bead system that I just talked about. Yes?
In a building like this where you stayed with the single glazing, do you have a condensation problem?
I don't know. It depends. The condensation is a whole, it's how much moisture is in the interior, how cold it is outside, the temperature inside, and the difference, and there's all these formulas. And there will be a point where moisture can occur if it's 10 below outside, most likely, but each circumstance is different.
Does the laminated glass give you any thermal break against that?
Not really, I don't think. It's the moisture inside the space and the hot and cold exchange through the glass and what's going to happen with that. So we have a pool for the Park District. We're trying to come up with that very problem. It's like a solarium, and they had a lot of moisture, and you know, what are we going to do? Probably the, you know, double glazed, triple glaze, too low coating to give the triple glazing, but with all that moisture, who knows, you know, when it's going to happen. So, yes, anybody else? Yes.
Are you saying that was spray paint?
Yes, all of, you know, we have a spray paint booth and equipment, and our work is all spray painted.
Do you use oil or latex?
It depends on the architect and the circumstance. The oil alkyds are kind of out of the picture these days because of the toxicity. We want low VOC, so it's more latex and the duration. The Sherwin-Williams duration we use a great deal of, probably 90% of our work. Yes?
How can you tell if you have old wood versus not so old wood?
It's very easy, really. I mean, the graining patterns, I mean, come and look at the model. They will be spaced wide apart. Old wood will have the very tight, you know, multiple patterns, and you could see that in a lot of wood. Now, you know, it depends on how they cut the wood, if it's quarter sawn, if it's this, if it's that. There'll be different patterns that can appear, but old wood, I mean, we've looked at it for 30 years, and it's just rich looking. It's, you know, thicker typically. Yes.
We thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.